What is going on, everyone? And in this video, I'll be giving you my UFC 274 main card predictions for the upcoming event taking place this Saturday. Charles Oliveira taking on Justin Gaethje. This will be one hell of a card. But to talk about the previous event real quick, we have Marlon Vera. He defeated Rob Font in a fight where, man, Marlon Vera, he just looks so good. Barely any damage. Looked like he could go another 5 rounds and pretty much beat the shit out of Rob Font. So just, I didn't see that coming. Went 5-6 on the event. Unfortunate. Andre Arlovski got the victory via split decision. Andre Fili just got absolutely destroyed. Man, that's unfortunate. I would have liked to see the fight go longer because I do think, man, I really do think Fili would have had some success. But hey, you get clipped and you go out. So unfortunate to see, but I think the big win of the night was Marlon Vera for him. Man, that's gonna be a problem, right? I'd like to see him fight Aldo 5 rounds, see what he can do with Aldo, and we'll have to see. We'll have to go from there, really, because this dude's gonna be a problem in that division. If he fights the way he did against Rob Font, I mean, he's gonna be a problem. But either way, obviously looking to bounce back for the pay-per-view. Really excited for this pay-per-view. A lot of great fights. Even on the prelims, there's some good fights as well. So we'll have to see how it plays out, but I'm looking forward to this one. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the first fight on the main card. So in the first fight on the main card, we have Donald Cowboy Cerrone. He'll be taking on Joe Lauzon. 36-16, 2-0 contest for Donald Cerrone, and then 28-16 for Joe Lauzon. Obviously, both veterans, OGs in the game, been fighting forever, it seems like. For Donald Cerrone, he's coming off of a loss against Alex Morono, in which he pretty much got destroyed. KO TKO via punches in the first round. Came off a draw against Nico Price, and then I think it was like Price tested positive for weed or something like that, so it got overturned, which was kind of weird. But yeah, I think it was like a draw or something like that. But the fact that he could still hang with someone like Nico Price, I mean, that's cool to see. It shows that he wasn't absolutely too destroyed. He lost to Anthony Pettis, lost to him via decision, unanimous decision. Obviously, Anthony Pettis is in PFL right now, and he's not necessarily doing the best. Conor McGregor, finished Donald Cerrone KO TKO round 1. Justin Gaethje got him. Tony Ferguson got him. So his last real victory was against Al Iaquinta in May 4th in 2019. I would say his last, win over someone that's slightly relevant would be against Matt Brown, I guess you could say. But obviously Matt Brown just lost to Brian Barberena. But I mean, that was way back in 2016 of December. But yeah, he beat Al Iaquinta, Alexander Hernandez, Mike Perry. Mike Perry no longer even in the UFC. So yeah, I don't know. For Cerrone, he's one of these guys where, if he's putting together stuff like when he fought, if he's putting together combinations like when he fought Rick Story back then, I mean, like, yeah, that's not a guy you want to mess with, right? That guy against Rick Story back in August 20th of 2016, I mean, that was a good Donald Cerrone. That was like Cerrone. It wasn't the Cerrone we've been seeing lately, right? So, and granted, he's been fighting top level competition, but I wouldn't necessarily consider Price and Morono top level competition, at least right now. Maybe in the future, but so yeah, it's sketchy for me for Cerrone because he has that Muay Thai. We know he's coming in there with the Muay Thai, a lot of kicking, right? He goes to the legs, goes to the head, goes to the body. He tries to mix it up. Pretty good jab. He's always pumping a little jab out there. Veteran in the game, but man, he's taking a lot of damage, and he's one of these guys where if you can just get in his face, hit him with something really good, maybe go to the body, maybe you clip him on the head. When he gets hurt, he kind of folds up against the fence, right? He kind of turtles and doesn't really have too much. He's not one of those guys to really get into a brawl and start swinging, at least not right now. I'm not saying Joe Lauzon is like the best striker in the game or anything like that, but I do think he might have the power advantage here in this one. And that can be a little bit concerning. Although I do still think if Lauzon hurts him, maybe he finishes it, but I think he might look for a submission, or he'll be content with just kind of grinding this one out, getting in his face, holding him against the cage, and kind of drowning Cerrone on the floor, which I do think he could do. But I think Cerrone probably thinks that this is probably going to be his last fight, right, before he either retires or he goes bare knuckle fighting or whatever, whatever it is, right? But if he's gonna fight for this one, I think, especially against a guy like Joe Lozon, who's not like an up and coming guy, right? So he knows that Lozon, he might be able to give Lozon a lot more and not be able to give, Lozon might not be able to finish him. But I do think Lozon's probably gonna land the heavier shots and be able to grapple when he needs to grapple, and I can see him like kind of just pretty much dominating a unanimous decision here, unless he gets clipped and makes like a bad decision and then Cerrone wins. And honestly, I'd like to see Cerrone go out on a win versus another fight where Cerrone's just getting absolutely crushed or something like that. So I think this is a good fight because Lozon is not an up and coming guy who's running through people. And it could be an entertaining fight, and I think if it goes all 3 rounds, that'd be pretty good to see too, because it'd be nice to not have one guy get absolutely destroyed by the other. But I gotta go Lozon. I think his grappling is gonna be the difference. I think he can hold Cerrone against the cage. I think he can land the heavier shots and press forward and kind of just shut down Cerrone. Now, whether or not he finishes him, Cerrone, if this is his last fight, he's gonna give it his all. So I think Cerrone's not gonna get finished, but I do think Lozon wins. So I'm gonna take Joe Lozon to defeat Donald Cerrone. I'll take him to win by a decision. Let's move on into the second fight on the main card, and we have a light heavyweight fight between Mauricio Shogun Rua, and he'll be taking on Ovince St. Preux. 27-12-1 for Rua, 25-16 for Ovince St. Preux. Now this is gonna be a great fight in my opinion because this is a rematch, and rematches pretty much never go the same. Yeah, they never go the same. Now, I think rematches the same guy wins, but it might not be the same way. Although I do think, I mean, this is another guy where Shogun is. How is this dude around still, right? I mean, this dude's coming out like this dude fights everyone in this division eventually, right? He's coming off a loss against Paul Craig, where Paul Craig was able to take him down, smash him out, kill him. Round 2 KO TKO. Before that, he beat Nogueira by split decision. Good fight to see, but it doesn't really have any value in my opinion, because I don't see Nogueira like fighting for the title. He beat Tyson Pedro, which is pretty interesting, via KO TKO in the 3rd round. Lost to Anthony Smith. He beat Corey Anderson, so that's a hindsight, that was a pretty decent win. And when he did fight Ovince St. Preux in 2014, which is quite a while back, he got clipped on the head by like a back, like kind of just like Ovince was like backing up and then tagged him. But Ovince St. Preux has a lot of power, right? And I don't see in this fight Mauricio Shogun Rua, I don't see him getting like a takedown on Ovince. So I don't think OSP is gonna have to necessarily worry about getting taken down unless he does some bad fight IQ stuff, which could definitely happen in this fight. This is one of those fights where you might count out the wrong guy, and next thing you know, who is on, just smash him out on the floor or something like that, and he's fighting like the number 3 guy next or something like that. You don't know with these legends who are basically just always in here gatekeeping everyone. But I do think Rua has to do a lot more in this fight to get the victory than Ovince St. Preux. So for OSP, I can easily see him just landing one good shot. And he's a very slow starter, so that's the one criticism of Ovince St. Preux, is that he takes a little bit. I mean, if he never starts really, right? Because he's always just loading up on the left hand. We've seen him with some out of nowhere head kick to the dome. But he is a slow starter, and he does load up, and it starts to become a little bit predictable. We know on the floor, though, he can go for those submissions, and those are pretty decent. But as of late, man, he's been getting kind of destroyed. Tanner Bosner was able to kill him. Jamal Hill took him out. He beat Alonzo Manyfield, but okay. Lost to Ben Rothwell. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, for OSP, he's kind of like, he really needs to land a really good shot, or you need to be shooting in on him, or he takes you down and gets into one of those submissions. But at the same time, like, if Rua is getting brawly with him in his face, maybe Rua lands a big shot, man, and he closes that distance and starts brawling with him and lands a good shot, and OSP goes out. I mean, that could very well happen, but I still think that Rua is going to have to land a lot of shots, whereas OSP in a wild exchange could clip him and it's over, just like it was in the first fight. I think this fight obviously goes a little bit longer than the last fight. I actually think it might get out of the first round just because, Rua doesn't want to just rush in there and get clipped in 10 seconds and then lose the fight. But at the same time, I think OSP's style is not necessarily to rush, right? And he has to be careful as well because he could get clipped, and it's really up in the air at that moment. So, but I do think OSP, if he can put together one good shot, maybe it's a head kick, or he can put him away. But I can also see Hua getting into a wild exchange and then just clipping OSP, and OSP goes down, because it's not like OSP is necessarily like a top level contender. I think he's just too slow, and he relies too much on like one big shot to change the fight versus actually like doing something. Maybe it goes to decision and OSP loses a split decision because he really had no volume, and Hua was just able to land more leg kicks or whatever. But I think OSP is going to be able to land something big on Hua, and I think we see Hua go down and then he finishes him. So I'm going to go OSP on this one. I'll take him to defeat Shogun Hua Mauricio. I'll take him to defeat him by round 2 KO TKO. Let's move on into the third fight on the main card, and we have one hell of a fight. Michael Iron Chandler taking on Tony El Kukui Ferguson. So this is where it starts to get interesting. This is where everyone wakes up, right? Everyone's falling asleep. All the casual fans, they're falling asleep. They're like, oh shit, what's going on, right? And they look over while they're half buzzed off Bud Light. So for Tony Ferguson, 26-6, coming off a loss over Beneil Dariush via unanimous decision in a fight where he got taken down and had nothing. He just didn't have an answer for it. That's pretty much it. He got a knee bar on his ass or an ankle lock basically, and then he almost broke his he's screaming out in pain, but he's not tapping. Like he's one of those guys too, though, right? You really have to kill him, and even if you kill him, like, you have to do what Gaethje did to him, which was a 5th round kill him. He's not gonna give up until like he's dying. And so his last 3 losses are coming off of Beneil Dariush, top contender, Charles Oliveira, champion, Justin Gaethje, fighting for the championship, number 1 contender, right? So, and then he defeated Don Cerrone and all that. So you could look at his past 3 fights and be like, oh man, this guy's getting, his ass beat or whatever. But it's against literally the top 3 guys. Basically. Top 4 guys, whatever. That's not something to just look at and be like, oh, he's getting clipped, left and right. Like, he was getting knocked out by Don Cerrone, and he lost to Anthony Pettis, and he lost to Kevin Lee. Like, maybe it would be a little bit more concerning, but he's only losing to the best guys. And even against Charles Oliveira, he was able to go all 3 rounds with him and lose via decision. Against Dariush, he lost via decision. So I'm not saying that Ferguson's going to win this fight or something like that, but I also would maybe think it could be a little bit more close than people expect it to be. Crazy movement, chaos, not really worried about his cardio, top-notch cardio, good leg kicks. This dude will pull defensive submissions as well. His takedown defense is pretty good. I don't know if Chandler's going to be able to get takedowns at will, but I do think he will be able to get some takedowns. And, it's up in the air. But at the same time, with how like wild Ferguson can get, I don't know if Chandler's going to be diving in for takedowns like that, because, if Ferguson pulls off a submission, then, there we go. We start talking about something else. Ferguson, these two, Chandler wants to put on exciting fights and whatnot, and we all know Ferguson will, he'll go with that, right? He'll dive into that. He'll start brawling with people, spinning back fists, cartwheeling across the floor and stuff like that, and they'll start getting into wild exchanges. But in theory, I really do think Ferguson can't fight like that, right? He's got to outpace Chandler. He's got to make Chandler go all out, kind of like what Gaethje did, except Ferguson, make a miss and start landing to the body, going to the head, and just out cardioing Chandler slowing down a little bit. Because if Ferguson fights smart, I can definitely see him winning here. If Chandler's like missing a lot of stuff or just going for the kill, and then he slows down, and then Ferguson's like, okay, I'm just gonna keep fighting smart. Something tells me like neither of them will fight smart, because they're not those kind of guys. Not that they're not fighting smart, but like they want to fight an exciting fight, and they not taking any risk is just not something that they would do. But I do think Chandler has to be careful here, because Ferguson can land some pretty good uppercuts and then just outpace him if Chandler's gassing out too bad. For Michael Chandler, coming off that unanimous decision loss against Justin Gaethje, where there were moments where I think he could have, I don't want to say taken over the fight, but definitely done a little bit more. But he was like taunting, and he was kind of like not. He was had his hands down and stuff like that, and that's kind of why I think he lost the decision. I think the first round he hurt Justin Gaethje a lot, which is pretty good to see, and then he kind of just let it go from there. And he definitely was trying to knock him out versus like fighting a little bit smart. So Chandler, I would say his power, not his power. Yeah, I guess you could say his power and speed is a little bit underrated. I don't think a lot of people give him that credit. I think we saw that against Charles Oliveira. I mean, he was so close to winning the title. We saw how quickly he dispatched of Dan Hooker. I mean, he literally would have, if there was like 10 seconds more, he might have won that fight against Charles Oliveira. And then even against Justin Gaethje, I mean, he was able to keep up with the volume, basically 103 strikes to 116. And in some moments, if he didn't like taunt and fall a little bit smarter, I think he might have been able to take Justin Gaethje out. But he was kind of just welcoming a brawl, and he kind of got lost with the crowd and all that. So I want to say, like, obviously don't fight like that, but I don't know if that's his style, right? So Chandler also can land submissions, right? So Chandler is not a guy you want locking onto your neck via guillotine or anything like that. I don't think Ferguson's gonna be diving in for takedowns, but it's always there just in case they get into a weird position. Chandler's gonna, I think for Chandler, Ferguson will welcome like the wild exchanges to land like a spinning back fist, KO him instantly or something like that. But I think in moments like that, Chandler should look to the wrestling and not engage with all the craziness, man. Because Ferguson will be rolling around on the floor. If Ferguson gets clipped, he'll like roll around on the floor, pop back up with the flying knee. Like, you don't know what this guy's gonna do, so you can't give him those opportunities. Yeah, it's kind of scary because I do think Michael Chandler has enough power and enough speed early on to really hurt Ferguson. But at the same time, if Chandler like goes for the kill shot so quickly, like he's been doing in his 2 previous fights, I think he could get clipped with something, or just get a little too crazy with it and too eager to get a finish, and then next thing you know, Ferguson just pops him with something and then alters the whole fight, and then it's kind of goes downhill from there, and then we see Ferguson just putting the volume on him because he's not gonna gas out, and it's so hard to finish Ferguson. So I think if Chandler slows this down a little bit and fights a little bit more smart, because he has to, man, right? Because if he loses this fight, he falls out of that contention just because of MMA math, basically. But yeah, I think Ferguson might struggle with the wrestling, but it's gonna. I really think it's up to whether we see Chandler just gas out because he's throwing bombs everywhere in that first like couple minutes. If he doesn't, but he clips him, and then he's like, okay, I clipped him, and then he lets Ferguson get back up or whatever, or goes in for a takedown and controls him. That's really I think Chandler's gonna shine. But if he gets a little bit crazy, I think we might see Ferguson pull off the upset here. But I'm gonna go with Michael Chandler because I do think if he fights a little bit, I don't even want to say smart. It's just like slow it down, right? You don't gotta just start landing these big shots and then taunting the guy with your hands down. Like, just fight smart, get the takedowns, land the bombs, but back away, land some kicks, and kind of just pressure Ferguson, shut him down, and take him out of there. But I do think Ferguson's tough bastard, so I'm gonna go Michael Chandler on this one. Like I keep saying, he has to fight smart. He has to slow it down and not let Ferguson kind of take over this fight, or even get caught, right? Because if Chandler goes for like a takedown and then Ferguson pulls a guillotine on him, I could definitely see that happening too. But we'll have to see, right? It's interesting because I don't know what Ferguson's gonna necessarily look like, and Ferguson's taking some damage too, right? We saw that against Gaethje, man. Like, Jesus Christ. So I'm gonna go Michael Chandler to defeat Tony Ferguson. I think it's a battle. I think it's crazy. I'll take him to win by a decision. Let's move on into the co-main event of the evening, and we have the champion Rose Thug Namajunas taking on Carla the Cookie Monster Esparza. 12-4 for Namajunas, 19-6 for Carla Esparza. This is a rematch of when they fought on The Ultimate Fighter. I think it was the finale, pretty sure. But that was a pretty long ago, and I think if anything, Namajunas has been the one that's improved the most, even though she lost that fight. Yeah, that was way back in December 12th of 2014, the finale. where she lost to her for the championship, because that was to determine like the champion at the time. She lost via submission, rear naked choke in round number 3. On the feet, though, I think Namajunas was landing the better strikes, obviously, and I think it's still going to be the same thing here. You see Esparza, like, she's not out here striking. Like, her striking has not improved how Namajunas' striking is, right? I don't see her. And if you even look at Carla Esparza, like, she hasn't fought. She lost to Joanna Jędrzejczyk, KO TKO round number 2, and that was way back in 2015. When she's fighting like really top level competition, I'm not so sure that she gets the victory. She went split decision with Michelle Waterson, split decision with Marina Rodriguez, and yeah, she took down in her last fight Yan Yonan in the last fight, and she was able to get the KO TKO in round number 2, and then she smashed her out there. But I think Namajunas is going to make this one pretty hard for Carla Esparza to get the takedowns. I think she's going to keep that distance. I think she's going to land a lot. I just think Namajunas on the feet is going to be a little bit too much, and have that good takedown defense, improved takedown defense, possibly even be able to go for her own submissions, reverse position. I think she's a much better grappler and wrestler than she was back in 2014. So I'm really looking forward to Namajunas getting the victory here. I'm obviously aware of Carla Esparza being able to take her down. But man, I don't know. I think Namajunas is going to make this one a lot harder to get taken down. I don't think she gets taken down at will. And even if she does get taken down, I think at least early on, Namajunas makes it pretty hard for her to control her and is able to get back up. So interesting fight. But I think if you're looking at Carla Esparza, it's got to be just the grappling, right? Because there's no way we're saying Esparza is going to outbox or outkick or anything like that Namajunas on the feet. So I think Esparza is going to be trying to get that takedown fairly quickly, but I think Namajunas is going to show her that it's not going to be as easy as it was last time. And the moment that happens, right, the moment Namajunas is able to hurt her on the feet, whether it's reverse the position on the floor, land something good on the floor, that's when you're going to start to see it start to fall apart, I think, for Carla Esparza, because then she'll be diving in for the takedowns off of that instinct. And when she can't hold you down how she thinks you can hold you down, then that's when I think we start to see the turn of events. And, I think Namajunas can go 5 rounds pretty decently. So I expect her to kind of beat her up over the course of the 5 rounds and the first 3 rounds, and then take her into the 4th and 5th. And I think in the 4th round, she might be able to get a finish here against Carla Esparza. So for Namajunas, the darting in and out movement, she mixes it up well. I like that she has the threats with submissions. I like that she might be able to reverse the positioning in this fight if she gets taken down. So yeah, Carla Esparza is going to have to show an improvement, I think, on the feet and the ability to like take down. I guess if she's taking Rose down at will and Namajunas isn't able to do anything, then yeah, of course Esparza might be able to just easily grind this one out or pull off another submission. But something tells me Namajunas is going to just make this one a lot harder to do. So I'm going to go Rose Namajunas on this one. I just think overall she has more weapons to win. But I'm aware that Esparza can, if she's taking her down at will, then yeah, maybe Namajunas is going to have a short night. So we'll have to see, but I'll go Rose Namajunas to defeat Carla Esparza. I'll take her to win by round 4 KO TKO. Move on into the main event of the evening. We have Charles Oliveira, Du Bronx taking on Justin the Highlight Gaethje. 32-8, 1 no contest for Oliveira. 24-3 for Gaethje. Violence, just absolute violence. This is another fight, man, where it's just going to be insane, I think. For Charles Oliveira, coming off a win over Dustin Poirier via round 3 submission. The biggest thing I always say about Oliveira is his striking is so underrated. Like, I think a lot of people look at his submission game where he can latch onto you, backpack you from any angle, any position. He doesn't need to take you down to submit you, right? Which is a great thing, but I think a lot of people underestimate his striking. His kicks as well, good teep kicks, good leg kicks. He has a really fast jab. And he's quick, man. We saw how quickly he dropped, and it kind of feels like sometimes out of nowhere when he fought Chandler, how he was able to drop him in the second round. Like, he just clipped him, man. This shit looked so clean, and then he's able to finish the fight. Good knees in the clinch as well. Not a guy you want clinch with you, because he'll start landing some big shots in close, some good elbows. The one thing that scares me, and I think it scares everyone really, is that his ability. He's coming off a massive win streak as well, but he gets clipped. And everyone says, like, okay, you can't be getting clipped like that against Justin Gaethje, and they're right. Like, you cannot be getting clipped like that against Justin Gaethje. But at the same time, Gaethje can be clipped as well, and everyone's like, oh, I've got a chin, I've got this, I've never been submitted by, or the only person I've been but until you fight a guy who can submit you at that quickly or whatever, that dominantly, that you don't know, right? So I do think Oliveira can definitely submit Justin Gaethje, but I do think Gaethje can I do think Gaethje can send Oliveira's head flying somewhere. The one thing with Gaethje, this dude's got to be killed to get taken out, right? You really have to kill him. Like, that's it. Like, I would even say more so than Tony Ferguson, right? Which is why when they both fought, it was like, holy shit, because Gaethje was just beating his ass, man. Just those shots that you heard. And you see Justin Gaethje lost against Khabib, but man, I think he just knew how good his wrestling was, and he just had no answer for it. And we saw that, man. Nurmagomedov was just able to do whatever he wanted with him. Beat Donald Cerrone, but I think at this level, if you're at this, fighting for the championship, you got to run through Donald Cerrone. Defeated Edson Barbosa. He has some pretty nasty uppercuts, good leg kicks. I mean, his leg kicks are disgusting, man. Like, that's not someone you want kicking the shit out of you. But at the same time, Oliveira has good leg kicks. Justin Gaethje also, obviously has the capability of wrestling. It's just he doesn't really look towards it. He goes to his hands so frequently, and he relies a lot on his chin that we don't really see him like going in for takedowns all the time. If any time, actually, even against Eddie Alvarez, Alvarez went in for a takedown. He did lose that fight, but again, it was another fight where he had to like die. I think Dustin Poirier was able to get him out there in the fourth round, but he had to die. He just breaks guys. And when he runs into someone that gives that energy back, it's like, oh shit, he has to like figure it out, and it doesn't work. That's why it was interesting against Michael Chandler, because Chandler, I think, was able to match his power and all that. He could have had the opportunity to lose to Chandler, but Chandler was just willing to taunt and all that stuff. But not to take anything away from Gaethje, but Chandler's a tough outing as well, but he was able to get it done. Against a guy like Oliveira, I think the plan here is for Gaethje to run in there and be aggressive, clip him early on, see what he can do. Because you got to take Oliveira out, because it's almost like the Oliveira, he's getting rocked, getting thrown around on the floor. And next thing you know, this dude hops on your back in the most awkward position, and he's able to submit you. So you really got to kill Oliveira too. It's just that Oliveira shows more like, okay, he can definitely be rocked. And Gaethje's going to get in there. I think Gaethje hits him and does rock him. But it's a matter of Oliveira, like, what does he do, right? And that's the sketchy part, because it's like every time this dude gets rocked, it's like, oh, I'm going to come back and win. And then he wins the fight. We saw that against Poirier. It was like, he ate some nasty shots from Poirier, but he was still able to backpack him in the third round and then get the victory. Against Michael Chandler, he gets clipped in the first round. At the end of the round, looks like he's about to die. Comes out in the second round, clips him, takes him out. Against Tony Ferguson, he grapples Tony Ferguson. But Tony Ferguson's like a cardio machine, and he has a good volume. But Oliveira was able to do more in that fight. Against Kevin Lee, he gets a submission, guillotine. Gordon, KO TKO. Nick Lentz, KO TKO. This guy is in here, man. Even against Jim Miller, who we've seen had some success against other people, he submits Jim Miller. So you really have to, for Oliveira, when you rock him, you got to take him out, and you got to do it quickly. Now for Gaethje, I don't see Oliveira. If Oliveira knocks out Justin Gaethje, that would be the most surprising thing, because I think a lot of people are assuming that Oliveira either submits him, right? Submits him most likely, and then Gaethje knocks out Oliveira. But I think if Oliveira knocks out Gaethje, that's when I think people are going to be like, wait. Like, I knew his striking was good, but now it's really good. or it was always good, right? I've always said Charles Oliveira's striking is underrated, and his mix up of the kicks as well. So I'm interested to see what happens here. I do think Oliveira is going to get rocked, but I do think Oliveira can definitely land something. Again, it's gonna seem like, whoa, where'd that come from, right? It's just gonna be something that comes out of nowhere. Maybe it's a teep kick to the head and then he goes out or whatever. But I do think the moment Oliveira hurts Gaethje, I think he's gonna be able to climb up on him, wrap him up, get a submission in there, rear naked choke him to the floor, and it's gonna look like. I don't think it goes like to the 5th round. Maybe it's a battle, right? I don't know, but I think Oliveira is gonna be able to get this one as long as he's able to survive. But it's like that's what he does, man. He gets clipped and then he survives and then he gets a submission victory. And for Gaethje, Gaethje's just got to be careful. But you know he's gonna try to get in his face, land those leg kicks, and try to land something big, the overhand right. But I do think Gaethje leaves himself a little bit exposed, and I think Oliveira will, by many people's surprise, take advantage of that and clip him, and then go for the submission. So I'm gonna try not to think too much about it, just because these fights where it's like this is like at the end of the day, as long as you're watching, that's who's winning, right? We're winning because we get to see like this wild brawl, wild fight where both guys are just giving it their all and they're destroying each other. So with that being said, I'll have to go Charles Oliveira to defeat Justin Gaethje. I'll take the win by round 2 submission. So that'll do it, guys, for my UFC 274 main card predictions for the upcoming event taking place this Saturday. Going to be one hell of a fight. Looking forward to it. May 7th, 2022. Thank you guys for watching. Leave your comments down below. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. You know what? I'll see you guys in the next video.